In this video, I will teach you a little tweak that will change the way you think about your flashcards. It will supercharge the amount of information you remember, and it will also change the way you create flashcards. In fact, I will teach you a small little mathematical concept, and then I will ask you to create your flashcards. You will then see what flashcards are good for memorization and what flashcards are great for forgetting. I will show you exactly the way I want you to create flashcards to take your learning through the roof. I'm Kat Severson, the inventor of the Severson method, a scientifically proven way to learn anything fast. Let's get started. So in order for me to teach you this method and to teach you this technique, I didn't kind of want to talk about it in general terms. I just wanted to show you exactly what I mean. I think that everyone agrees that actions speak louder than words, so let's get started. For this exercise, I've chosen something that is rather lengthy. This concept has about 10 different rules, but it's very general. Depending on which exam you're taking, you may need or you may not need to know these rules, but if you're taking a standardized test and it has a math section on it, I guarantee you gotta know these rules. So it will apply almost to everybody. Today we're going to learn 10 rules of exponents. I'm going to quickly teach them to you and then we'll start on our process of creating flashcards. So the first rule is this. When x is raised to a 0 power, it equals 1. The next rule is this. When x is raised to a power of 1, it would equal to x. The next rule is when x is multiplied to y, and all of it is raised to the power of m, it equals to x raised to m, and then y raised to m power. So this exponent gets distributed. The next rule is this. Now x is divided by y, and all of it is raised to m power. What does that mean? Now we have x raised to m, and then y raised to m. These rules kind of go together. They're kind of similar, but very important. Now, maybe we will do one more rule here. Let's do one more. Now let's do a negative exponent. What happens when x is raised to a negative m power? What we're going to get is we're going to get 1 over x raised to m power. So now we have 5 rules here. Let's have 5 more on this side. Come with me. Let's do x raised to m power times x raised to n power. We're going to get x raised to m plus n. Next rule, x raised to m power divided by x raised to n power. This is going to equal x raised to m minus n. Next rule. Now let's do a fractional exponent. What happens when x is raised to a power of m over n? We're going to get the nth root of x raised to the m's power. So 2 more rules to go. Now, when x is raised to the m power, and then all of it is raised to the nth power, what happens? Now it's x raised to m times n. So far, we're looking at 9 different rules. So let's go over the 9 rules that we have so far. X raised to 0 power is 1. X raised to 1 is x. X and y, when it's raised to m power, the exponent gets distributed, so x to the mth, and then y to the nth power. Now x over y, when it's both raised to the nth power, now exponent is sitting in the numerator and the denominator, both. Very important to not forget that. Now the negative exponent, when x is raised to negative m power, we're going to get 1 over x raised to the nth power. Now 4 more rules on this side. X raised to m times x raised to n, so the base is the same, different exponents. We're going to add those exponents together. Now let's divide x raised to m over x raised to n. We're going to get an x, but we're going to subtract m minus n. That is going to be your new exponent. Now let's do a fractional exponent. X m over n equals nth root of x raised to mth power, and then this one, where x is raised to the mth, and then altogether it's raised to the nth power, and now it equals to xm times n. One more little rule that I want you to remember. It's not a quote-unquote rule by itself, but it's super helpful to keep in mind. X, when it's raised to 1/2, it equals to square root of x. Just something to keep in mind. Very helpful for most standardized tests. X raised to 1/2 equals square root of x. Now, let's think about this, and how would you try to memorize all of these rules? Well, the first thing that I would do is I would first write them all out, and then I would practice doing problems using these rules while I'm still looking at these rules. But how can I make sure that I don't forget how to use this rule and I don't accidentally multiply these exponents instead of adding? Well, you definitely want to add, and you want to remember this. Chances are you will be tested on this rule. How can I make sure I commit this to memory? Flashcards. Great idea. Let me ask you, how would you go about creating flashcards? Would you just put all of these rules on one flashcard? Would you use each individual flashcard for each individual rule? Well, I really don't know the right answer for this, but I do know that there is a big flaw in the way most of my students originally start to create flashcards. I'm going to show you a flashcard, and I want you to tell me if there's anything wrong with this flashcard. Give me a second. What do you guys think about this flashcard? Is this going to help you remember the rules? What about this one? Is this a helpful flashcard? One more question. Is this a helpful flashcard? If you said yes, I want you to hold that thought. When students first come to my office, when they're not getting the result they're looking for, it's either an exam or a standardized test or a grade that they're not getting. Some of the things that they tell me is that, Katya, I work really hard. I study, but then I go to the exam or I take the test and I just can't remember most of the stuff that I studied, but I did study. And what they tell me, what their common excuse is, well, Katya, I'm just not a good test taker. You know what I mean? And what I'm telling them is that it's not the problem of them not being a good test taker. Who they are is they are not good test preparer. Most of my students were never officially taught the difference between studying for a quiz and studying for an exam that has lots of different information in it. This flashcard will help you hold information long enough that you can remember it for a quiz that happens tomorrow. This flashcard will help you store this information for a very short time. What is the problem with this flashcard? Well, the reason this flashcard is flawed, all of these in blue are flawed, is because they contain both the question and the answer on the first side of the flashcard. If you expose yourself to x raised to the 0 power equals 1 enough times, maybe 2 or 3 times, for some people 1 is enough, so that your brain will automatically send you a signal of, you know this. You're looking at this flashcard, and what your brain does, it recognizes it. It recognizes your own handwriting. Duh, you wrote this flashcard. It's your own handwriting. Of course, your brain is going to say, you know what, Katya? You know this. But you may not know this. You may not know this. You may just recognize it. For the brain, there isn't really a big difference between recognition and recall. Your brain is giving you this sense of fake fluency as opposed to concrete mastery of the material. You're kind of just flipping through your flashcards and your brain's like, you got this, you got this, you got this. So you are spending time, you are putting in the effort, but in a couple of days you go and take the exam, this knowledge is no longer available to you. How is it possible? Well, guess what? Your brain did not get a chance to build any strong neurological pathways of retrieving this information. It is only acknowledging that it has seen this information in the past. It is acknowledging that this information is familiar and it's your own handwriting. Compare this flashcard to this flashcard. Can you tell me the difference? This flashcard is the ultimate style that I use with all of my students. This is something that helps them score higher on their standardized test. This flashcard only has one part of the problem. It only has the question on the front side and then the answer on the other side. And what we try to do is we try to use these on-line side for the question and the side of the flashcard with lines for the answer. So whenever my students are looking at a stack of flashcards, those flashcards don't even have to be theirs. They can just take some of my flashcards and they would know how to use them because the blank side will always contain the question and the line side will always contain the answer. So how does this work? Well, guess what? Every time I'm looking at this, I'm asking myself, what is an x or any number, an integer or a rational number, doesn't matter, raised to a 0 power? What is it? I think it's 1. Is it 1? Then I turn it around, and here in pencil, so that I cannot see through, in pencil, it gives me the answer. Sometimes it gives me the rule, it gives me a lot more information. And now what I've practiced, instead of recognition, yeah, you've seen this flashcard before, what I've practiced is something that is way different. I practiced retrieving this information from memory. I practiced asking my brain a question, and my brain has practiced locating the little neuron, the little pimple inside of my brain that contains this information. So when I am creating my flashcards, what I'm doing is I am erasing the answer, and on the front of my flashcard, I'm only including the questions, and my answers always go back to the lined side. So question, answer, question, answer. By practicing with these types of flashcards, your brain is developing the muscle of looking up a fact or looking up a question and then retrieving it from memory. So I hope now you understand why these flashcards, the ones that have the question and the answer on the same side, are, I'm sorry, those are just garbage, and why these flashcards that contain a question in the front and the answer in the back would work for your memory. But now the next question is, well, Katya, how soon should I be reviewing my flashcards? Should I be reviewing them constantly? Should I be reviewing them all of the time? And if you don't understand how much information I need to remember, then I should be carrying around a stack of 1,000 flashcards? Well, there is a very clear and simple system. I really like to keep things simple. Let's say you learned this information for the first time of encoding this information is about 11:30. After 9 hours, your brain will start to lose about 70% of the information. So when do you want to revisit your flashcards? You guessed it, in 9 hours. So most of you have a smartphone, and don't overthink it. Just quickly, if you have an iPhone, just tell your Siri to set a reminder in 9 hours. It's so simple to do. My most successful clients, the ones that score in the 95th, 96th, and 99th percentile on their standardized tests, always do that. Siri, remind me to review flashcards in 9 hours. And then guess what they do? They take pictures of the front side of their flashcards. And then their next review is in 4 days. Here's exactly how my clients automate their review. What they do is they usually try to review everything they've learned on that day right before falling asleep. So they get into bed, and it's becoming for them really difficult to retrieve this information from memory because they get sleepy and they get tired. And the more effort they require to retrieve this information from memory, the better this information is going to store in the future. So I always ask them, especially when it comes to an exam or standardized test they really care about, something of really high stakes, I ask them to review this information right before falling asleep. So here's what we do. I know many of you are going to be weary about this method because it requires taking out a cell phone right before falling asleep, but it really works for 99% of my clients. They take out their cell phone and they type in everything they have learned on that day. And then they send themselves an email with all of that information. Next morning, this email is in their inbox, and the email is from themselves. So I always follow this process. So I get an email from Katja Severson first thing in the morning. This email contains all the important things that I have learned the day before. Guess what I do after? I then take this email and I boomerang it to myself in 4 days. In 4 days, this email appears in my inbox or in my client's inbox with their name on it. And usually in the title or in the subject line, we will have the idea or the outline or like the topic that they're studying. This system will have exponents on it, exponential rules in it. And then on the 4th day, you have automated your review. And some of my clients actually like to include the pictures, the front sides of their flashcards into that email. So all they're doing is they're just looking at the questions themselves and not looking at the question and the answer at the same time. I know this might sound a little bit complicated, but it is indeed very, very simple. If you master the system of automation and making it a rule, a habit, it's a powerful habit of reviewing information in a systematic, automated basis, you will see a dramatic difference on your standardized test. When you're looking at 60 different problems, let's say you're taking an ACT test and you're looking at 60 different math problems, chances are you might forget some of these rules if you were reviewing these rules using the regular flashcard method. But if you constantly looked at this and you asked yourself, what does a negative power mean? A negative power means it's 1 over x raised to that power. And if you constantly kept asking yourself that question and then you kept answering this question, you have strengthened this pathway and now it's almost automatic. And here's another little tweak to your flashcard practice. Now, let's say you asked yourself this question and you answered it correctly on the same day you learned it. Then you answered it correctly on the next day, and then you answered it correctly on the 4th day. How soon should you stop reviewing this flashcard? Well, there is a rule. Every time you answer this flashcard correctly, I want you to put a plus on the flashcard. Every time you answer incorrectly, I want you to put a minus on the flashcard. Every time you hesitate, I want you to put a minus. Every time you feel uncertain, I want you to put a minus. But every time you get this flashcard, without a doubt, I want you to put a plus. And once you have 3 consecutive pluses, plus, plus, and a plus, in the corner of your flashcard, you can now know you can retire this flashcard. And when I retire my flashcards, I put them in a special box. Actually have it with me, let me show you. There's really no rhyme or reason when I open it and when I pick it up and I review it. So this box is sitting on my desk, or you can put this box where your retired flashcards live next to your bed or next to your couch or maybe in your study area. So as you're passing by, you can open it and then you can just at random choose a flashcard. You can choose maybe 3 random ones and look at the questions that you have and try to answer them. That is so much fun, and you can even choose your own reward. You can play this game with yourself and you can say, well, do I get to buy this? Well, let me just dip into my magic knowledge box and let me choose 5 different flashcards. If I answer 5 out of 5, I'm going to make this purchase, or I'm going to go for this meeting with with my friends, or I'm going to go for the movie, I'm going to buy myself popcorn or something like that. You can actually condition yourself to making this a game, but this rule is a complete game changer. I make all of my students use this and we just see it in their test scores. Makes a big difference. I hope this was helpful to you guys, and please leave me a comment below. Let me know what test you're studying. Let me know whether this makes sense to you, whether this has helped you alter the way you think about flashcards. Also, what would be fun if you sent me photos of the flashcards you're making the new way, and don't forget that every month we pick one lucky learner. If you let us know what exam you're preparing for and what is it that you would like me to potentially help you with, then every month we pick one person who gets on the free session with moi. And if you live in New York, totally come to the office. And if you live somewhere else, we're happy to get on a remote online call with you and help you with whatever you're doing. So make sure you subscribe and leave your comments. And I will see you guys in the next video.